My father Daryl still do help out quite a bit. I own the company along with his son Christopher Waite. Christopher and I took over about 8-9 years ago now. So we're honored to be here. We were asked to come some time back, and we've been kind of prepping for what to go over with all of you here this evening. So we've got some notes, we've got some family lineage, some family history here, we've got some photographs and things to share with you later. We're going to try and keep it under 3 or 4 hours tonight, so we'll be brief, okay? So we're going to bring our old horse show and carriage over to show everybody, but we don't have anybody that knows that does anything with horses and carriages in town, so nobody would help us out with that. So thanks anyway, Dave, So again, it's an honor to be here. We appreciate the chance to get to talk a little bit about our history here in town and Medina County in general. We've got some lineage going way back to I think the early 1800s here in Medina County, if I'm not mistaken. So Uncle Harold has done a lot of work over the years with my grandparents to kind of get a lot of this in order. So I'm going to let him go with the early part of the family lineage there, and I'll jump in and kind of fill in some gaps, and we'll talk a little more of the current history here as well. So why don't you kind of take us back to some of the early days there?
Yeah, so we're hoping to learn something from you too, because I know you guys have a lot of history, and I've got some questions for you. You'll have to forgive my throat, it's a little dry tonight. But I've got some answers for some of the questions that you guys shot us, and we'll try to answer a few of those later. But I thought it might be fun to just take you back to the beginning of our history, which goes back to England, around 1566. Our earliest ancestor was Samuel Waite. He was born in Weatherfield, which is Essex, England, in 1566. That's one generation before our earliest ancestor, Thomas Waite, came to the United States. He was born in 1601, came to the United States in 1624. So that's when our first ancestor, Thomas, came to the United States. An interesting little sidebar about Thomas's cousin, who was also Thomas Waite, that we found out, which was kind of fun. I was looking through this yesterday. Any of you that know much about England's history are familiar with some of the different kings that they had, which were not very desirable back in those generations of time. And as I was looking through all this information that my grandpa Harold took a lot of time to put together with some of his peers and ancestors, there was a regicide for King Charles I in 1969. And 1649, I'll get it. And so Thomas's cousin, who was also named Thomas, who was a judge, was part of 100 people that helped dispose of that King Charles. And so he lost his royalty and his castle at that time. And as I was looking through all this, he ended up going to jail. He was not part of the people that participated in that, they call it a room. But he was part of the group of people that helped to get that king disposed. So that was kind of interesting as we looked through all of this that I found in Grandpa's records. And so anyway, he was not a great king, and there was another king that they disposed in those earlier years too. But at any rate, I was glad it was not our immediate ancestor. So Thomas came to the United States in 1624, and so then there's a lot of history that goes along with that, where he was at in New England. Benjamin Waite was the next ancestor, lived from 1644 through 1704. He has a lot of history. He was in several different cities in New England. We have 4 books which didn't make it in here. Massachusetts, and then he was part of the group that helped to protect the colonies from the Indians. He actually had a daughter, his wife, and 3 children were kidnapped by the Indians, and there's a book written about him rescuing his daughter from Canada. He spent about a year. It's a very, very long story, but this book is written about him rescuing his wife and his daughter, Canada, who was actually born in Canada. There were he and a number of his men from the community there in Hatfield, Massachusetts, went up to Canada and rescued his wife and 3 children and new daughter that was born in Canada in Canada from the Indians. So that's an amazing story. And then I also brought a book that's written about our ancestors, and this town is called Whately, Massachusetts. So there's a lot of history on our family. And I learned about this from some of my neighbors. Interestingly enough, Grandpa never told us about this, but there's a book, a city in Massachusetts called Whately, and so that's pretty interesting reading too. Deerfield is another town there where we have a lot of family history. Hadley, Hatfield, and Deerfield, enormous amount of lake history in those communities there. We can go out and bring those books in.
Yeah, we're right there.
There's a lot of history that you can learn a lot about it, but we can go on for a long time about that. But anyway, Benjamin was very, very famous in those communities. He was actually killed by the Indians in 1704 in those French-Canadian wars, and that they burned down the villages. There was a lot of drama and things going back and forth. The first battle was in 1677 in Hatfield, and we survived that one. In 1704 was a lot worse battle, and that one we did not survive. The next person in our lineage was John Waite. He was born in 1680. Following him was Elijah Waite, born in 1725. Consider Waite was the next person in our family tree, 1762. The first one to come to Ohio was Enos. He came to Ohio in 1824, and he settled in Hinkley. So we have some information on Enos here. And he settled in Hinkley, and then John Monroe Waite settled here in Brunswick, and he goes by J.M. Waite. He was born in 1817. He was Enos' son. And Enos and John Monroe and everybody thereafter they're all buried out in Hinkley, Maple Hill Cemetery. I have a whole bunch of pages here on all the people buried out in Maple Hill.
Yeah, so it was Enos and James Monroe were the first to be buried out there.
Right.
And this is before, there's no E on the end of the Waite name at that point. So the E didn't come in until the next generation there.
Right. So
like 1850s.
all the Waites before that were all just W-A-I-T. Interestingly enough, when you look at our family name, it was spelled about 4 different ways in the early years. I'm trying to think where we got that. It was spelled W-A-I-G-H-T. It was spelled W-A-I-T. It was spelled about 3 different ways.
Yeah.
And but we picked up the E on the name with Wesley, who was James Monroe's son, who was born in 1847. That would have been my great-grandfather's dad. And so that's when we picked up the E. And Wesley's born in 1847. And then my great-grandfather, Herbert, and his brothers all I'll have that name also, I'll have the E on that also. And so Herbert's brother, Wesley, let's see,
Harry is,
yeah, Harry and Ernest. Ernest was the one that had the general store in the center of town. So we'll let you talk more about him in a few minutes. Then Herbert's son was my grandfather Harold, and he was born in 1899. And then my dad is Ralph. And then the family tree goes on down to our kids and grandkids and that sort of thing. Do you want to give Bert Waite's little?
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the talk there and how you put this together.
Yeah.
So how did you come up with this, and what have we used this for in the past?
Yeah, so this is a talk that I gave to the Medina Historical Society at Spring Grove, oh gosh, probably 20 years or so ago. It was kind of fun. We gave a little bit of the history of our family and just a little bit about my great-grandfather and how he came into our business and just a little bit about his life.
So imagine if you could, my name's Bert, okay? So good afternoon, my friends.
Yeah, we wore his hat, his tuxedo.
Top coat and all
He was
that.
all dressed up just like Bert did.
I'm a little more casual today, so. Good afternoon, my friends. I am Herbert Waite, or better known to my friends as Bert. I was born not far from here in a beautiful little town of Hinckley, Ohio on June 14, 1869. My dad's name was Wesley. He was the 8th generation of our family in this wonderful country that came here in 1624 from England. My great-grandfather Enos came here from Massachusetts in 1832. My mother's name was Clarissa Collier. I had 2 brothers, and the oldest was Harry, and the younger one was Ernest, as we just mentioned. I also had a sister named Eva that married a fellow named Seeley Stebbins. My son Harold is buried over there. Of course, we're in Spring Grove at this time. Our family sure went through a lot of hard times when his first wife, Violet, died one day at the very young age of 33 in the dentist chair uptown in Medina. She was pausing here. She had had a dental procedure, and it went awry. She let out or whatever it was. The procedure went wrong. Anesthetic. There it was, yeah. So she died very, very young at the age of 33. It broke everyone's heart. Speaking of wives, I know what it's like to lose my wife early, as I had to live another 20 years after my beloved wife Pearl had passed away. But enough of that. I want to tell you all about something really exciting that happened in my life one day when I was 33 years old here in 1902, sitting on the porch of my brother's general store uptown in the corner of Brunswick there, about 303 and 42, just across the street from the Methodist Church, watching the nice folks from the Billows Funeral Home over in Akron do a funeral. They were doing a procession over to Westview Cemetery for burial service there from the Methodist Church. It struck me as I watched them, and I said to my brother, what an old profession. And so that was when I decided I wanted to go into the business, and I went out and bought a funeral home for Mr. Hackett out in North Fairfield, Ohio. I stayed out that little town for about 4 years. Don't ask me why, and I never figured it out. I then sold the place and bought one over in Preston, Ohio for about 2 years. Very short term there, and sold that place and went on to Wellington for about a year. Finally ending up in the city of Medina in October of 1912. But did take a brief shot at doing business in Akron for a year or so as well, from 1919 to 1920. And we have all these dates here spelled out. We'll show you guys here the different service dates from the early years. So, pausing there a moment, we joked earlier about horses and all that with Dave. So, if there was more than one funeral home in town or undertaker, there was some what you call dirty pool going on. So, he's got a funeral one day. I know his funeral's going to be on Tuesday, so I'm going to go with the horse guy. I'm going to rent the horses so he can't pull his carriage to have the service that day. So,
Yeah.
so there were a lot of behind the scene, shady things going on back then, behind the scenes. So, but in 1920, I knew Medina was home for me, even though my competition was pretty rough for me in those early years. Even renting the horses, like I just said, was a difficult task. So a wonderful man by the name of Jake Bettle came to my rescue and promised me horses anytime I needed them. By 1920, we're moving away from horses to those horseless carriages. We've got a picture of that here as well. From one of our earliest motorized hearses here, our first motorized hearse rather. And the business really started to grow then. People around here still tell stories of me crossing the street when we were located at 133 North Port Street, just a half block north of the square. That building's pictured right here. I would have no trouble crossing the street with them to go over to Noel's Diner or Schmidt's Texaco if I needed to. And I guess that was kind of famous for stopping traffic when I wanted to cross the street. So at this point, he was getting a little older in life, and he had no cares about anything. So he would simply just walk out across the street. Vehicles would just stand under brakes. And
we got stories from people all the time of him walking across the street, and people told us this for years, where he literally, when it was time to cross the street, he just walked across the street. One of these deals, you know, and this traffic stopped.
Well, luckily, they never got him, so.
Never got ran over.
It seems that the horns would always be blowing as they made their way across the street. I always try to be polite, tip my hat, and say thanks for not running me over. And it was a great neighborhood. I was really mad at those crazy boys, my son Harold and grandson Ralph, when they wanted to move our business all the way out to the country in 1961 to 765 North Port Street.
Yeah, so when we built the new funeral home, I can still remember, I was about 11 years old when the place in Medina got built. And it was literally one of the first, they call it now, modern funeral homes in Northeast Ohio. I mean, you don't think much about that today, but back then, there wasn't anything that wasn't 2 or 3 stories tall. When you think about, like going to Cleveland or Akron, what you see was funeral homes. Today, look here. This was they bought the land in 60 and it opened in 61. But it was literally one of the first places with straight in, handicap accessible and good parking and air conditioning. Those things did not exist in 1961. And my great-grandfather thought they were crazy. He was mad because they were moving away from the square. I mean, everything in the earlier generations were from the turn of the century until the 1960s. That was the Medina Shopping Center had just got built in 1955. And so this was built on the Weigel farm. And this was farmland in the 1960s in Medina. And he was furious.
The city stopped basically Homestead Street then.
So, this was work back then. And my grandpa Harold and my dad. And so when this was built, it changed the world because Long Acres was in town then, and Ginsberg's were in town in Medina back then. And he thought they lost their minds. He went around town and he talked to all the contractors, Medina Supply and Bennett Lumber and electricians, the plumbers. He tried to talk them all out of doing business with them. He said they've lost their minds. Nobody's going to go out there in the country and do business with you guys, But it literally changed the world for us because, in a matter of a few years, it literally put us on the map, and the other 2 guys' business started to fade, And in a few years, we bought out Ginsberg's, and in a few more years, Long Acres went out of business. And so, he was wrong. He thought he was right, but he was wrong. And the whole time the building was being built, he was about 90, 91 at the time, and he was inspecting the job. He was up on the ladders. He was making the carpenters crazy.
They had to put the ladders on the roof like after they called up, so he would not climb up the ladders after that.
Yeah. So it was an interesting story. The way that the world, and then when it was built, he was pretty proud of it. He'd go out and we tried to go out. They had an apartment in the back of the building when my grandpa and Grandma Harold were living. He'd come out in the chapel and he'd introduce himself to everybody. Hi, I'm H.A. Waite, senior member of this firm.
Cantankerous is a good word, I think I've heard over the years.
He was pretty feisty.
Yeah. So,
He was a good guy.
So, the boys were very young at that time. I don't know if I told you, Harold and Daryl are twins. So they were 11 years old when that building opened. So they got a great look in their teenage years, high school years, as what that building was like. So, from that point on, why business grew. There was still an ambulance service back at the time. So they were doing funerals, and the same car would be converted between ambulance and service calls. Some of you may know that. Obviously, Dave would too back there. So that got to a point in the 70s where there was too many ambulance calls and funerals at the same time. So the car just couldn't be available for both. So they made the decision to shut down the ambulance service, and they decided that my father, Daryl, had gone to the hospital and talked to the board out there about creating your own ambulance service. So, but now the life support team came from that conversation, and the funeral went out of 76, I think it was.
Well, we basically gave our ambulance service to the city of Medina, and our ambulance service became the life support team.
Yeah.
So my brother became the first director of the life support team, and went to work for the city for a while.
Yep. He had a real passion for, aside from caring for people on this side, on the other side as well. So he had spent a lot of time in training for be a paramedic alongside of
At that time, we were running all EMTs, and we were doing something like 1,100 trips a year. And we wanted to see, they had all those Rescue 911 shows on TV at the time. And we wanted to see the city get a better quality of service. We wanted to see paramedics instead of EMTs.
Yeah.
And so we said, hey, this is something that we think is important. And it will also be good for the city, and it'll be good for us too.
Yeah.
Not be, trying to do seven days a week, 7 nights a week, ambulance service. And, back in those days, the cars were combos. They were either a hearse or an ambulance. You turn the panels around. And, this is good for the city, and it's good for us. And so,
The Carlsons, they carried on. They went separate. They actually did their own ambulance company and business for a long time. And they were very successful with that as well. But it was just a matter of, we just simply focused on the funeral side of it at that point. So early 90s comes along. We're looking for some opportunities to expand a little bit. We at Southern Brunswick, kind of coming back to our roots, if you will, knowing that we, didn't have early any operations here, but the concept was kind of born in Brunswick. So we thought it was fitting that we come back this direction. And 94, we were able to locate a piece of land, a building that was vacant, All Riches Garden Center there down 303. We renovated that, and in October of 94, we opened that location. And it's been very blessed to be there 31 years now. Very, very close to Hinckley and serving that community down there as well quite a bit. So, very, very, very proud to be a service community for 123 years now. So, lots of ties back to the early days. We're still learning stories and figuring things out from. He's been to New England and done a lot of touring over there and tracking down some of these records, and really interested to see some more of these over the years. I got a real neat article here that Dave showed me that Sam Boyer wrote some years back now.
No kidding.
How long ago was that, Sam?
1970 something.
So just a couple of years ago, right? So Dave went over this with me, and he talks a little bit about the farm there in North Carpenter, and we believe there's some ties there as well. The Bird's brothers side of the family. We're still trying to track down the exact history and all that, but you relayed to me about when North Carpenter was there, and then 71 being built, and that farm kind of got split in half. And that was what, 60s, the three-room built?
65, it came to 303, and then it went north from there.
Going north towards Cleveland, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in that time frame then, our
It
farm got
opened
split in half.
from 18 to 303 in 1965.
and the stage is
then
going
it was
north
built
thereafter,
in,
yeah. So, so that's,
So Waite Farms is part of your family?
well, so you're talking, I mean,
Generations.
5 generations to be removed, right? So, I mean, 10 generations to go the opposite direction, the other side of the family. So, Harold was able to track down some similar names out of this article here, and we came up with, let's see here, drawing a blank here at the moment.
So Alta, I found Alta, and Alta was one of, let's see here. I found Horace is not a relation to us, but he was married to Julie. That was one question you guys had. And then I found out who Alta was.
She married, all from the front, right? Is that right?
Alta,
Was married to Frank.
yeah. But she was one of Ernest's kids.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So to your point, yes, I mean, but we're talking 10
Yeah.
generations
Yeah.
removed to this point. So we have no connection with anybody on that side of the family, haven't for 100 years probably, really, you know, so. If anyone knows of anybody in that side of the family, we'd love to speak to them. I don't think there's anybody around
I
here.
only know of one left.
And I think the development is really only just named because that was the original property name 125 years ago, whatever it was, so. So questions on any of that? Any comments or things that, yes, sir?
Well, I've worked with you guys in the past.
Sure have.
Somebody asked me to ask you, is there any truth that one of your flower cars had a license plate that read, "We'll wait for you"?
So none of ours. So Dad had involvement with RK for about 4 or 5 years. He owned the RK floral shop there and then Flower Gallery in Medina. But there was a saying on the back of the, I think it said basically don't text and drive or something like that. But it has nothing to do directly with us. So he had RK was in the middle of transition. Art and Kathy had passed. Art and Kathy Haas, RK. I think Sherry Eisen was running it there at that time, or was trying to help it kind of back on his feet again. So he had bought the building, bought the name, kind of resurrected the name, if you will, and then combined it with Flower Gallery Medina when Alan Parkhurst wanted to get out of the flower business down there. So he took and combined the 2 companies together at that point. So
What happened to the trains in your dad's?
they're still there.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much so.
Still there?
So coming back to Grandpa there, the upstairs of the Medina Funeral Home, Grandpa had always been a big train enthusiast. I don't think there's any pictures here with us, but we should have brought some of those
It
along.
was fantastic.
So that's kind of Grandpa's little museum up there, and he worked on trains for years and always wanted to have his own train set, basically, right? So the guys helped him. Gosh, I bet they started that 30 years ago or more now. And it sat for a long time. The table was there. Just they could tinker here. He would tinker there. He worked with the fellow in the square quite a bit to get some parts and components and all that.
All kinds of people.
Yeah, all kinds of people. So finally, about 15 or so years ago, it really took off and really started putting some time in up there, really organizing the room better, and really turned it into just kind of now it's a memorial, obviously, for him, but it's really just his little museum. It's got his big 3 favorite things in life. It's got Boy Scouts. He was a scoutmaster for a troop for 30
Well,
years.
we've got 100 years of scouting history in there. We've got pretty much all of the Norman Rockwell pictures that he ever did and that for scouting, and then we've got a lot of World War II stuff of Dad's in there. So if you're ever interested in seeing it, we've got to take you through. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's basically the entire upstairs above the chapel of the funeral home.
We take the scouts through there. We take the Medina basketball team through there once in a while. We take Dad's school through there once a year. So yeah, pretty much anybody wants to come through, we're happy to take through. It's really interesting.
It really is amazing.
Yeah, it gets better and better all the time. We just redid it just after COVID. Added a bunch of new stuff to it.
Yeah, so Grandpa died 3 weeks before the lockdown started in 2020. Middle of February 2020, so 3 weeks later, we could not have celebrated him. Nobody obviously knew what was coming at that point, but so at that time, they had to get the house cleaned out and all that, and the guy that lived in the house he was born in for 93 years has a lot of stuff. So it took them quite a few months to clean out the house there, and so that all ended up in the funeral home attic because they needed a place for a lot of that stuff to go. A lot of it related to there was unopened newspapers and magazines in the basement. The guy had kept everything, so the train room took a lot of that brunt for a long time, and then with COVID being what it was, we couldn't have anybody up there anyway. So it was basically closed for about 3 years, and we reopened it last year, all cleaned up, ready to go. Some new things on the walls. It was really a fantastic spot to come into sometime.
Yes, sir.
Why not a Brunswick Historical Society field trip?
Yeah.
We'd be happy to.
Yeah, that'd be great.
No, I guess so.
I've got the answer to Alta here. Alta was born in 1882. She's the daughter of Owen, who is the son of Ernest, who was great-grandpa's brother. Great-grandpa had 2 brothers, Harry and Ernest. And so this is Ernest's son, Owen's daughter. And she married John Weidman. So that's Alta's history. But I couldn't find out much about Horace other than who he married, or who she married. And she married, Horace married Julie Robinson. That's pretty much all I could find out. And he doesn't seem to be in our direct path. He's off the side someplace, which the problem with all of the genealogy we've got, and I've got piles of it that my grandfather did, just stacks of it. Most of it just goes so far sideways, and then, as I look up online and stuff, Grandpa did a lot of it, just mountains of it. But it only goes so far out, But we've got Pelton genealogy, we've got Oviatt genealogy, we've got Clark genealogy, we've got Lance genealogy, we've got all kinds of genealogy as far as, old Medina stuff.
Talk about your mother.
My mom?
Mm-hmm. She was a big part of that.
She was, and she helped me a lot. One of the things I was just telling Andy is I've got pretty much everything I need to do the first families in Medina County. Obviously, she did it for her family, and she got me started just before she died in 2018. She was helping me work on this, and then Dad helped me start working on this before he passed away in 2020. So I was telling him, I'm going to finish this. I've got pretty much everything I need to do. I just got to sit down and spend some time.
So Grandma was a Clark by birth,
Right.
and her family had a big farm in Medina on Smith Road.
East Smith Road,
Yeah.
down in the valley, by the Chandler Farm.
Yep.
And so,
That's where Champion Creek sits now, so that was all the Clark farm
right.
that they grew up on.
And I've got a wonderful video if you want to see it. I thought about doing it today. I looked at it today, and unfortunately it's an hour long. I thought it was a little. Miles Reed did it. It's wonderfully done. It's all about our family, and it's wonderful.
He did it, it's wonderful.
Yeah, if you want to see it, I'll be glad to share it
I
with
think
you.
they're on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken.
It's on YouTube also. You can see
Yeah.
it. Great family history. It is out there.
I had a question. You said, we talked about that Waite farm on 71.
Mhm.
Well, Charles Waite owned that farm.
It was Charles, right? Okay.
And he loved that farm. I mean, he really loved it. And when they put it in, he didn't want 71. So he was taking the cord and everything, and they had to make a thing where his sheep could go across 71, underneath 71, and the sheep could graze on the other side.
Oh, wow.
And,
There was some or something like that.
yeah, and, another thing, Mamie Wade, like, we would know something about her, now, she's a Wade.
Yeah.
Now, I
Many or Mary?
Mamie.
Pardon?
Mamie.
Mamie.
Yeah. Go on, please.
Okay, Mamie Wade, I think was she a Tillotson, related to Tillotson?
I'm sorry,
Mamie Wade, was she a Tillotson?
she was a cottage.
Nodding. She was
Hi,
nodding.
she was in this book.
Clyde Freeze she would come over to their house and visit. And when Clyde they were making their funeral thing, they had to go to Waite's in Medina because they're related. That was really something. And I remember going to his funeral thing, and they were talking to all the cousins. Vern Freeze was saying, so the Freezes and the Cottings and Mamie Wade are all related to you.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes,
and
I heard
Charlie's
Cottings.
related to you too.
Well, right.
Is that it?
That's the farm.
Okay. That's in my, so I'd like you all to come up and look at this folder, because there's a whole bunch of Brunswick stuff in this folder.
I think the church owns it now, doesn't it? Bethel Temple, they're renting it out.
So that's all the farm now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is Charles and
Charles.
Mamie.
Yeah.
Mamie Wade and Charles Wade.
I've seen that,
It's in that article.
okay, I've seen the cottings in our family tree, I know that they're in there. I don't have to look very far.
That's interesting. I've never heard about the tunnel before.
Yeah, oh yeah, and then you had, when you take something, you can see the sheep on the other side.
So I wonder when that tunnel went away, probably years ago, right? Obviously. That's interesting that.
But he was devastated.
Oh yeah.
Did you remember that, Stan?
I didn't know about that.
He was devastated. He just.
Well, how could you not be? I mean, you're probably been split in half by a highway.
So that means that you're related to the Freeze, which I know for a fact because Clyde and Fern, that's all I talk about. And then you mentioned the Stebbins.
Stebbins, yeah.
Which is right here on 42, there's two homes there.
Okay.
The one home is still standing, the brick house.
Just up the road here?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just up the road here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Woods area,
Oh, yeah,
next to St. Ambrose.
That's Stebbins.
That is
Okay.
the Stebbins.
Okay.
Haymeyer's lived there.
Hey, Mike, okay.
But Stebbins lived there, and then Charles Wake was on the map, and then the Freezes lived on the Green substation.
All the way out that side of town.
But they talked a lot about things,
Yeah.
their relationship with them.
And this is what I love hearing, this type of stuff. I mean, we've got a lot of information here, but it's always good to fill in the blanks, so.
There'll always be points.
Yeah, I know. Even with all this data. Yes?
Andrew, did any of the women in the family go into the same line of work?
So ironically, no, it's been all men through this generation. So there wasn't a lot of females. I mean, there was 2 boys, so Grandpa had a sister named Janice. She had nothing to do with business. I don't think she ever worked in business, right? She moved to Canton when she got married. And so he has 2 girls and a boy. Christopher, my cousin, he and I own the company. But his daughter is the air traffic controller, and then Meredith lives down in Nashville. Her husband married a doctor down there.
But interestingly, one of my granddaughters did say, hey, Dad, is there any girls could come in? I said, anybody can come in the house.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it did cross my mind.
Yep.
That'd be a lot.
So I have a brother who lives out in California. My sister Katie works for the library system here in town. So there are, so it's 3 on our side. There was 3 and 3, 6 grandkids. So beyond that, I have 2 daughters. They're now 11 and 8, so we got some time yet. Christopher has 2 sons who are 11 and 8, is 12 and 8 now, I think, as well. 12 and 7, something like that. So we got some time for the next generation comes along. We did, just in the past 2 years, kind of rename the company. We changed our logo a little bit. We went from Wait and Son just to Wait Funeral Home. And hopes of future generations, maybe the females might come into business. Maybe the and son wouldn't be as intimidating perhaps, so we took that off the name. Just kind of modernized the logo a little bit. So, we got a cleaner logo now here. We got a little tree and just says gatherings, funerals, information. So this, the market nowadays is not just funerals anymore. It's a lot of cremation. And a lot of folks still have the value of holding a service, so we're still doing gatherings. Maybe not the traditional funeral per se, but we're still doing a lot of get-togethers, gatherings, meals, whatever it might be that the family celebration of life is a big term nowadays as well. So,
Did you ever do in-home funerals? Because that was.
that was before my time.
I know that.
Great grandpa's time period.
Yeah.
And Dad and Grandpa always told stories about how they would load everything up and haul it all out to the house. And of course, we still have a lot of that stuff in the attic.
Oh, we do,
in the
yeah.
dining office, but it was an all day long, process back when we had to do that.
Only about 10 or probably 15 years ago now, we actually took a casket to a home for an overnight visitation where the person was at the family home on farm for overnight. Pretty rare to do that anymore.
Well, I wish I could do this for a little.
Well, this was in Medina on Smith Road, so. But no, I mean, yeah, back then, yes, that was a common thing to do. Was we had portable tables and things for display at home in that sense, yeah. Yep.
Where's your old hearse?
So the horse-drawn carriage is in Brunswick, underneath the awning there. It's in a kind of a glass case, if you will, on the front porch. It was in the garage of mine for a long time when I was a kid. We had it renovated, I think 10 years ago. We took it down to Amish country. A guy by the name of Howard Goodyear tore it down there for us. And we had to kind of update it. They go through the wheel bearings, and we had to put rubber on the wheels instead of the metal bands. So it goes out for parades 2 or 3 times a year now. Howard's team will come grab it and take it to Medina. So typically use it for Memorial Day, and there were 4th of July, and then coming up in November, here in a few weeks, it's actually not going out this year, but we have had the Candlelight Walk Parade before as well, which is a nighttime parade. We've had it decorated, the lamps actually work on it. And so we have had it in the nighttime parade as well. It will not be there this year. The city has new regulations on how many vehicles you're allowed to put in the parade, so we're going to use our old truck instead. We have a 53 Chevy panel truck with our name on it. We'll have that parade. So, but the horse-drawn carriage is still in front of there. It's not our original. It came from a barn somewhere.
Yeah, down the southeast of Iowa.
Bob Kiley used to work for us and they found that, right?
Okay.
So,
It's
Bob,
almost identical to the one we had.
yeah, it's very close. It's very
In
close.
fact, the lamps on our originals.
Yeah, so our original carriage, they took the box off of, you can see it come out here, but they put it on a truck chassis. So they actually took the carriage box off the carriage itself and put it on a motorized chassis. So that was our first,
1950.
our first motorized hearse.
That's on an Overland chassis.
I'll do a little trivia here for you. So we've got some pictures hanging in our building. Way over in '94, Historical Society had given us a number of prints that we could copy. So I have here in my hand Mr. Pitkin's home, the first undertaker in Brunswick. Anybody know anything about that?
What I know about that also is make sure it's the house. Yes. When my mother and father moved to Brunswick in 1954,
Okay.
they bought that house.
No kidding.
And so
Is the house still there?
the house was moved. It was put on a truck. The house was moved over to Jefferson.
Okay.
It's on Jefferson down here, and
But the house is still standing.
Is there and standing.
Where was this located originally?
That was located right across the street from the middle school, on Pearl Road.
The old high school.
The old high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was moved from that
It was
location.
moved from that location through the field to Jefferson.
Oh, basically just straight from the back.
It's straight back.
Yeah. Right through the fence.
Interesting. I'll take a good picture of that.
Yeah, so go down there. It's near the end, it's on the, east side of the road.
Okay.
On Jefferson.
All right. We've got some other pictures up here from the center of
Does
town.
anybody have an idea what time period he was in business?
Does anybody know what time period Mr. Pickens was in business in Brunswick?
I'm trying to think. I don't remember seeing, of course, everything was in homes though.
Sure.
I remember a couple of accidents that took place with the interurban railroad that hit one of the cars carrying a body.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That wasn't very fun at all.
Because it's always been interesting to us, you know, the city of Brunswick officials asked my grandpa and my dad to come here in the 60s. And that was around the time when they were building our new place in Medina. And I think grandpa and dad just thought they had too much going at the time period when they asked us to come here at that time. And that's why the city then turned around and asked the Carlson family to come from Defiance and come here. So that's how they came about coming to Brunswick when they did. But they asked us first, and grandpa and dad thought they just had too much going on with building. You know, it was a big deal when they built Medina. You know, they like, this is all we can do. You know, we can't handle anymore.
Mid-60s when Carlson's opened then, probably?
Well, it was 60,
Dave?
mid-60s, 65,
Right around
He was
60.
64.
64.
Yeah,
It was-
a couple years after.
Because they were here during,
Okay.
they were here
He already
during
had
the,
Okay.
tornado in 1965. That
Yeah, a couple
Carlson's
years
building
after we
was
built
hit.
ours, yeah. And,
It was hit by a tornado?
It actually moved it on its foundation.
No kidding.
Yeah, it didn't tear it down, it just moved it.
Huh.
Tore up all the cars across the street, however, at Shepherd
I'm just
Ford.
wondering if the Pickens were there at the turn of the century maybe, or?
Oh, yeah, somewhere right around that time.
Carlson's would have come to town somewhere in the late 60s or 61
Yeah.
or 62.
63, 64.
63 or
Yeah,
64?
that's what I was thinking, it's like 63 or 4.
Because Mike graduated with us in 66.
Graduated
And he already
66.
had a funeral home in 66.
Okay.
And it was already established.
So that's what, I'm just wondering, like, how long those Pickens here? You know, I mean, what was the lapse of time where there was no other here?
Earl tried to get on the Hills Fire Department, and that didn't start until 60.
Okay.
And I left the Hills Fire Department in 63.
Okay.
So it would have been 61 or 62 when Earl tried to get on the fire department in the Hills.
Somewhere in that range then.
I
Okay.
ought to be able
I
to
know
find
that.
out about the Pickton thing.
That'd be, I mean, if you got any information on that, that'd be fantastic, you know,
I'm
so.
sure we do.
Because we served Brunswick from from the beginning, from 1902 all the way to the.
Yeah, there's probably some names. in there.
You were always for Brunswick. You guys were always there, Earl.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, there had to be, I just wonder how long Pickens, I don't remember ever, I was born in 50, and I don't remember ever hearing their name.
I didn't either.
Like lawmakers and midsumers and hours and
No,
other
they had to
people
be
out in the
aware.
county.
I
I
don't
remember,
think he lasted very long.
I'm sure it had to
never hearing their name. They must have been back in the early part of the century.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I remember seeing your new building going up back there in 55. Because I started driving and used to go to Medina and shoot pool at the
Yeah,
spur upstairs.
yeah.
The reason I asked about the family's funeral thing is because of the way our Heritage farmhouse is set up. It has two doors going into the same place from the porch, and they say it was one for the living and one for the dead.
Oh, that's interesting. See, that's kind of like the white and the black horse thing. You hear these, one for living, one for dead. That's kind of like the white and black horse, and people would say, Well, you know, when we first started using our horse-drawn hearse, they said, you can have a white horse and a black horse. We're like, what? And they said, no, that's the way they did it back then.
Yeah.
And so we said, what's the story behind that? And they said, well, you know, one's going to heaven and one's going to hell. Like, what? And but I mean, that was always, you know, and some people really did use teams like that, and others used, you know, just nice 2 beautiful black horses. But for great grandpa, he had to work, you know, with Sid Finn and then this other stable just to try to get a horse because winemakers said, well, I'm just run up all the horses. So it wasn't. I mean, it's interesting, the stories.
Yeah.
Okay, change the subject just a skosh.
Please.
Sure.
On the corner, for lack of a better word, the corner of 71 and Grafton.
Okay.
Maybe at least 2 structures are falling down. Where they wait, farm,
The Bain Farm, isn't it?
No. I think that's north of where
Backed
we're
up
gonna be.
against 71?
Yeah. I mean,
It's
if
the
the
Bain
road
Farm.
goes up, and you have to kind of look down, don't slide.
It used to be a wood shop. Somebody used to use wood.
Is that, okay? They're both.
The city just bought that, and it's being annexed into the city.
Oh, did they
It's going to be part of a
Baseball.
new baseball field.
Is it really?
All in there.
Okay.
Yeah, we found that out in our
Oh, the
last
Bainers?
homeowners meeting.
Yeah, the farmer dirt, where the sawmill was at.
That was a song.
Is that what it was?
Okay.
Bain.
That's north of Grafton,
Wall.
right? North of
Yeah,
Grafton.
north of Grafton.
You get to north of Grafton, right down the,
Yeah.
well, it's
Northeast corner.
Being punitive, right?
that's Bainer's
Yeah.
In the old days, like when I would go by freezes, they called this room the music room. You know, and their body, or did they just?
No, embalming goes back to the Egyptians.
Yeah.
modern embalming goes back 120 years.
But did they
whatever.
do it in the old days? I mean, in Drummond?
Mhm. Yeah, sure. I mean, we have, before electricity was what it is now, there was gravity, like,
Fashion embalming.
gravity embalming, yeah. So, you would have like a big pouch or something hanging or a bucket on the wall, and the fluid would come down through you and just use gravity for the embalming purposes. Now there's electric pumps that
Because
do
it
it.
was done in people's homes, you know, years back. But I mean,
Yeah.
you'll see, you know, back in biblical days, they did embalming, you know, back in the Egyptian
Now, what
days.
about the Amish?
They do the embalming right in the home too.
Yeah, and some of that's still
Yeah,
very
we
tight.
talk to the field directors who work with them, and they go out right out to people's home,
Yeah.
do it in their home.
In that case, you get gravity, there's no electricity in the home, so.
Yeah.
So there was some of the old fashioned ways in that
Yeah.
sense, yeah.
Do we get to see your stuff up front?
No, please,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so there,